Hey guys, tonight we're going all the way back now, farther than that into the sacred, smoky heart of ancient Rome. You're standing in front of a marble temple, the kind that looks like it should be filled with gods, secrets, or maybe both. Incense curls from the doorway like a suspicious snake, and the steps are worn smooth from centuries of sandals. The sunlight's already fading, and in a few minutes, a little girl will walk through those doors and never come out the same. You're about to meet a group of women history barely let speak Rome's Vestal Virgins. They lived in silence, in service, and in constant danger of being buried alive, which, let's be honest, is not a job perk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from anywhere unusual, let's say a midnight train, a quiet dorm room, or maybe a hot bath at 3 a.m., drop your location and time in the comments. We're all sleepless wanderers together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking slowly into the Temple of Vesta, and you smell smoke before you even cross the threshold. Not the acrid, back-alley kind, but clean, sacred fire, the kind that's been burning longer than you've been alive. Maybe even longer than Rome has. The temple is round, which already feels odd. No corners, no hiding places, and right at the center, a flickering flame dances like it knows secrets it'll never tell. You approach, careful not to trip on your own borrowed sandals. Someone told you this place has stood for hundreds of years, but they didn't mention how it feels like time slows down in here. The priestesses guarding the flame are called the Vestal Virgins, and despite the dramatic title, they're not mythical. They're real girls, chosen young, very young, and trained for a life that would make a monastic retreat look like summer camp. They swear a 30-year vow of chastity, not because someone handed them a pamphlet on purity, but because their bodies are considered literal state property. That's right, you mess up, the gods get angry, crops fail, enemies invade, and somehow, it's always your fault. Historians still argue whether this was an honor or a sentence. Probably both. You pass by one Vestal, maybe 16. Eyes like polished glass. She doesn't look at you, but her posture is perfect. Hands folded over the waxy folds of her white robe. There's a thread of red in her sash, a tiny rebellion against all that wetness. Her hair's been cut and regrown, shaped and scraped. Every detail of her appearance is deliberate, ceremonial, sacred. You know, casual stuff for a teenager. Her job, keep the sacred flame alive. Never let it go out, not even for a second. If it does, that's an omen. And in Rome, omens are serious business. You wander past the flame, deeper into the temple's belly. The air cools. You are not supposed to be here, but who's watching? You find the records room. Scrolls upon scrolls line the shelves, thousands of years of rituals, punishments, weather patterns, maybe even lunch orders. One page describes the penalties for impure thought. Another lists the number of doves needed for a blessing it's for, in case you're ever preparing a divine buffet. And then there's the law, the lex popia, if you want to sound smart at dinner parties. It outlines the strict expectations of Vestals, their rewards, and their very specific punishments. Like being buried alive in a sealed chamber. Not because Rome was extra dramatic, well, okay, it was but because no Roman could spill the blood of a Vestal without ticking off every god on the registry. So instead, they just didn't spill it, You get the logic. A mainstream historical fact. The Vestals were among the only women in Rome allowed to own property, make wills, and even free prisoners with a single touch. Big deal, right? Except, all that freedom only lasted as long as the flames stayed lit and their vows stayed unbroken. Still, Some girls said yes. Or rather, their asterisk fathers asterisk did. Because choosing to be a Vestal wasn't a personal decision, it was a political one. Your dad got bragging rights. Your family got tax pucks. You got a bed in a marble dorm with some other extremely tense girls and a lifetime supply of side-eye. Quirky fringe tidbit. Some believed that the sacred fire wasn't just a symbol, it had asterisk literal asterisk magic. If a Vestal whispered a secret into the smoke, it might reach the ears of the goddess herself. Though let's be honest, she probably had other things on her divine to-do list. And yet, here you are, heart beating a little faster than usual, imagining what it would feel like to be one of them. To know the whole city watched your every move, to be both worshipped and feared, to carry in your hands a fire that could bring the wrath of heaven or the praise of Empress. You step back from the flame, still burning steadily, and you wonder, what happens if it flickers? Who would they blame? And more importantly, who would they asterisk bury asterisk? But that's a story for another night. Or, well, actually, it's the one we're telling right now. You're standing in the atrium of a large Roman villa, just outside the forum, and everything smells like olive oil and warm marble. A few birds chatter overhead, their wings fluttering in the rafters, but inside the house it's quiet. Too quiet for a day like this. There's tension in the air like the moment before a thunderstorm or the second before your name is called in class. You shift on your feet. The house is clean. Immaculate even. No clutter. No toys. No scraps of bread left behind by a distracted child. That's because today isn't for play. Today is for fate. And in the corner of the room, barely 10 years old, sits a little girl who's trying very hard not to fidget. Her name doesn't matter, not yet. Names are private in this world, kept close until history decides whether you'll be remembered or forgotten. She watches her mother clutching a charm, her father speaking in hushed tones with a senator by the door. Everyone is waiting for the moment when the list is read, when the names of eligible girls freeborn, with two living parents, and pure in body and reputation are placed into the ritual urn. There's incense again. There's always incense in stories like this. The girl looks down at her feet. She hasn't even had time to grow into her sandals. Somewhere in the next room, her goat bleats nervously, perhaps sensing what she cannot. You see, becoming a Vestal isn't something you apply for. You don't audition. There's no panel of judges holding up scorecards while you tend flames or quote prayers. It's not even a vote. It's a draw. Historians still argue whether this selection by lot was truly random or quietly manipulated by powerful families angling for glory. After all, having a Vestal Virgin in your bloodline was like winning Rome's version of a Nobel Prize crossed with a fashion endorsement deal. Very prestigious, very useful, very public. The names are drawn in the forum. You're there, standing on hot stone, surrounded by families in freshly pressed togas. The sun is punishing, and the crowd shifts like a restless sea. A priest steps forward with the urn, murmurs a few lines to the gods, hopefully the flattering kind, and reaches inside. The little girl squeezes her mother's hand. Her mother squeezes back but does not smile. The name is called. There's a pause, heads turn, murmurs ripple through the crowd. You know that moment when everyone knows something's just happened, but no one wants to be the first to react. That's what this is. A life hooked, a path chosen, a childhood over. The girl's father nods to the priest. The mother covers her mouth. The goat, still bleating in the distance. A few moments later, she is escorted through the city, flanked by attendants and officials, like royalty on her way to exile. The streets are swept clean for her, but she notices the eyes, watching, judging, revering, pitying. Mainstream historical fact. The selected girl would be brought into the atrium west of the house of the Vestals, where she would be consecrated by the Pontifex Maximus, Rome's highest priest. He would gently remove her from her family, symbolically severing all earthly ties. That's not poetic exaggeration. That's what the Lord demanded. From this moment, she no longer belonged to her parents. She belonged to the goddess. They cut her hair. That's the first thing. Her long, dark curls fall onto the marble floor and are gathered up like sacred relics. No mirrors are offered, no goodbyes. She is dressed in the pale, layered robes of a novice Vestal. Red thread looped round her waist like a warning sign. There is a ceremony, of course. There's always a ceremony. Chants, offerings, maybe even a lamb or two if the omens are bad. The flame is burning that day, thank the gods, and the older Vestals watch her with quiet detachment, as if to say, yes, we were you once. Yes, we learned not to cry in public. 2. Quirky tidbit. Some Roman authors claimed the chosen girl had to be carried over the threshold of the temple to symbolize her transition from childhood into sacred service. Like a bride, but one marrying duty, not a man. You can imagine how surreal that must have been. One moment you're feeding your goat lentils, the next you're being cradled like a sacrificial offering into a stone temple full of whispering strangers. You're standing by the door as she enters. She hesitates just for a second. Then she's inside. The temple closes behind her. The sound echoes, and she won't walk freely out again for 30 years. Unless, of course, something goes terribly wrong. But that's a nightmare for another section. For now, she is 10 years old, and she's learning to walk without turning back. You're in the heart of the temple now, and it's quieter than any place has a right to be. Not silent. Exactly, there's always the low crackle of the sacred fire, a hush of footsteps somewhere behind the stone, but the kind of quiet that presses into your skin. Like the air itself has rules here. You find yourself walking slower, breathing shallower. Even the urge to sneeze feels like it might turn a divine rebuke. The newly chosen girl, still in her red threaded sash, is being led deeper into the building beneath the domed chamber with the flame, past the cold colonnades, into rooms you didn't know existed. Most Romans didn't. This isn't the part tourists ever saw, even in ancient times. Welcome to the hidden world of the Vestals. First, the classrooms. You wouldn't recognize them as such at a glance. No chalkboards or scroll-filled desks here. Just wide, airy spaces, with padded benches and mosaic floors, where young novices learn the sacred rites of Vesta. The older priestesses teach them how to prepare grain offerings, how to sprinkle salt properly, how to chant invocations without sounding like you're bored or about to sneeze. The rituals are precise, like choreography. One wrong step, and the whole city panics. Mainstream historical fact. Vestals were expected to keep Rome's *Pax Diorum*, peace with the gods. If they performed their duties incorrectly, it was believed the gods might withdraw their favor, and all sorts of chaos would follow. Floods, famines, defeats in war. So yes, the pressure was high, even for a child. The girl listens carefully. She doesn't ask questions. She tries not to blink too much, because even that feels risky. A priestess with a face like polished limestone demonstrates the proper way to feed the sacred fire. No logs, just carefully shaved pieces of wood, ranged like an offering. You don't throw it in. You invite it in. The flame itself, it never goes out. Or it's never supposed to. It burns inside a bronze hearth that sits on a raised dais. Always watched, always tended. Even at night, 2 Vestals are assigned to sit beside it. No sleep, no drifting off, just soft chanting and the constant ritual of adding wood. A flicker in the flame is enough to start a panic. And yes, historians still argue whether the fire actually did go out sometimes, quietly relit, before anyone important found out. After all, Rome was nothing if not skilled in covering up its divine bloopers. You trail the girl as she's taken into the lower levels. The architecture changes. It's still marble, still sacred, but somehow more practical. The walls are plainer, the ceilings lower. Here lie the chambers where the most sacred objects are kept. The *Bignor Imperii*, the pledges of rule. Mysterious artifacts said to guarantee Rome's power as long as they remained untouched and sick. Ret, fringe tidbit. Some whispered that one of these items was a meteorite. Others said it was a wooden statue that screamed if moved, or a stone that bled. Nobody really knew. That was the point. There's also the underground vault, the *Penus Vista. Yes, it's exactly as awkward as it sounds in modern English. And no, you don't giggle. This was the secret chamber where the most ancient relics were kept, guarded solely by the Vestals. No men allowed, not even emperors. You stand in the dim vault as the little girl's torch flickers across stone walls. You feel the coolness here, the faint scent of oil and earth. The older Vestal gestures to a statue wrapped in cloth. She says nothing. The message is clear. Some things don't need to be explained. Some things are sacred precisely because you don't understand them. Then comes the lesson in silence. Silence is an art here. It's not just not talking, it's a posture, a breathing rhythm, a way of carrying your thoughts like they're already being read by the gods. You are taught when to nod, when to fold your hands, how to stand still so long your feet forget what walking feels like. You are taught to be invisible, but in the way that makes people nervous. Reverent, afraid. You sleep in a dormitory with 5 other girls. The beds are narrow but clean, the walls painted with faded frescoes of goddesses and doves. The first night, the youngest girl, barely 8, cries softly into her pillow. No one speaks to comfort her. That's not the way things are done here. You learn quickly. Emotion is a private matter, and comfort is not always kind. Still, the camaraderie grows in quiet ways. A hand brushing yours during prayers. A shared smirk during a particularly long sermon about grain sanctification. A piece of dried fig left under your mat on your name day. These small rebellions are the seeds of survival. You, standing in the shadows of this temple, begin to understand the unspoken contract. The girls are not prisoners, exactly, but they're offerings, chosen not just to tend a fire, but to become one. And if that fire dims, even for a moment, well, history remembers the flame, not the girl who stumbled. You find yourself drifting into the main hall again, blinking in the filtered light pouring through high, narrow windows. It's morning probably. Time is hard to track here, especially when every hour tastes like rose water and ash. Today is a ceremonial day, though. You can tell by the bustling servants, the polished marble, and the strange smell of something both sacred and overcooked. A banquet is coming. No, not just any banquet. *state banquet. And the Vestals are expected to attend. You follow the now slightly older girl, 12, maybe 13 now, as she's led by 2 senior priestesses toward a gilded chamber near the edge of the Palatine Hill. Her robes are impeccable. Her sandals squeak slightly on the clean floor, betraying the nervous flutter under her otherwise perfect expression. She's practiced this look, serene, unbothered, divine. Inside, her stomach is playing the lyre solo from a tragic opera. Today, she will dine within earshot of the emperor. Mainstream historical fact. Vestal Virgins held a peculiar seat of honor in Rome. They were afforded front row placement at public games, processions, and official feasts. They could speak directly to the emperor without permission and were the only women allowed in certain government buildings. Sounds powerful, right? But let's not forget power in Rome, who was a double-edged gladius. Just sharp enough to flatter or punish. She steps into the triclinium, a grand dining hall with 3 couches ranged round a low table where senators recline and chatter like overfed birds. The aroma of roasted meats, honeyed dormice, and spiced wine hovers like a perfume too expensive to enjoy. It's overwhelming. The girl isn't expected to eat much. She's expected to be present. She takes her seat. A servant pours wine diluted. Of course, because she's still technically a child, and an elderly senator leans in with a chuckle about the sacred flame. Something vaguely inappropriate and awake. She smiles politely. She's been trained not to wince. And then, the emperor arrives. The room freezes for a breath. He's wearing a crown of laurels and an expression that could curdle goat's milk. He nods to the Vestals with deliberate respect. One of them, the oldest, returns the nod, slightly deeper. It's a chess match made of etiquette. And you, lucky you, get to watch it from the sidelines. The girl keeps her posture perfect, her fingers curled loosely in her lap. The emperor says something to the senator beside her, then dangerously turns and speaks to her. What does Vesta dream of? Child. Her heart skips. Not a riddle. Please, not a riddle. She answers carefully, her voice steady but quiet. She dreams that Rome never sleeps. A beat. Then the emperor laughs. It's loud, too loud. Everyone joins in, either out of genuine amusement or sheer survival instinct. The girl smiles, blinking just once. She can feel the sweat pooling behind her knees. Quirky tidbit. It was once believed that if a Vestal met a condemned man on the way to execution and locked eyes with him, the execution had to be cancelled. A little look of salvation. So yes, even emperors treated them with a mix of reverence and mild terror, especially if they were running low on political luck. Historians still argue whether this respect was sincere or performative. Was it true awe for the goddess? Or was it a public relations tactic to appear pious? Honestly, Rome did love its theatrics. Later that evening, after the feast, she walks back to the temple. Her robe smells faintly of citrus and wood smoke. She's tired, not from the food, but from holding herself so tightly together for hours. Being holy is exhausting. The older Vestals walk in silence beside her, their sandals whispering against the stone. No one speaks of the senator's bad joke. No one mentions the emperor's laugh, but everyone heard it. In the stillness of her dormitory, she sits on the edge of her bed and lets out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Somewhere beyond the thick temple walls, life continues: bar fights, weddings, lovers sneaking home at dawn. She imagines a fruit vendor yelling about apricots. She's never bought an apricot in her life, and yet she was seated beside the emperor. She lies down, staring at the ceiling, and wonders, will her parents hear about today? Will her old neighbors? The goat. She hopes it's still alive, or at least still yelling. She closes her eyes. Tomorrow will be another long day of rituals, training, and perfect posture. But for a moment, just a tiny flicker of time, she allows herself to think something very human. What if I had said something wrong? And if I had, would I still be here? You pull away from the chamber, letting the image fade. A girl in sacred robes, lying perfectly still, her dreams wrapped tight like the folds of her sash. You blink and time shifts again. The girl is older now, 15, maybe 16. Her face is sharper, her posture instinctual. She no longer looks to the older priestesses for silent cues. She is one of the older ones. Not yet senior, not yet allowed to scold or guide, but firmly in the middle, the age where your choices begin to form cracks in the stone round you, even if you pretend not to notice. She walks the temple halls with a kind of grace born of muscle memory. Her hands know the shape of the sacred grain bowls before she reaches for them. Her feet find the smooth stones without glancing down. You trail behind her like a breeze through a corridor. She does not stumble, but you notice something else today. She's slower to smile, slower to speak. The laughter that once came easily between the younger Vestals has quieted into glances and have-nots. It's not fear exactly. It's something softer, like resignation. This is the point in her service where something strange happens. She begins to remember the outside world. You see, when she was 10, Rome was enormous, unreachable, a sea of sounds and sandals and statues, best left to the gods and senators. But now, Now she watches it from her window and sees the dust on the marble, the cracks in the temples, the way people shout at one another when they think no one is listening. Mainstream historical fact. Although Vestals were cloistered in many ways, they were not prisoners. They could walk through the city, shop in markets, attend ceremonies, but always accompanied, always watched. They were symbols, walking omens of Rome's divine favor, and symbols, as you may know, are not supposed to get caught sneaking glances at the baker's apprentice. She starts lingering near the edge of the temple gardens more often. There's a fig tree that leans just over the wall, and on warm afternoons, she stands in its shade pretending to recite verses while stealing glimpses of the world beyond. Street vendors shouting about grapes, children racing past with wooden swords, a woman arguing with her husband about laundry. It's the kind of life that never smells like incense or marble polish. It smells like asterisk living asterisk. And maybe, just maybe, she starts to want it. Fringe tidbit. There were stories never written, always whispered of Vestals who had secret lovers. They rarely ended well. The punishment for breaking the vow of chastity was severe. Not just expulsion, not just shame, asterisk burial alive, asterisk. And yet, those stories still existed. Why? Because humans are humans, even when they wear sacred robes. Historians still argue whether any of these so-called affairs were real or just political smears. A Vestal accused of impropriety was an easy scapegoat and touchable until she wasn't. More than one senator found his political rival's daughter named in such a scandal. Coincidence? Perhaps, or perhaps not. But back to her. She doesn't sneak out. She doesn't even speak to anyone beyond the temple walls. But she starts asterisk thinking, asterisk. And in this place, that's enough to be dangerous. She begins writing poems. At night, when the others sleep, she sketches verses into a wax tablet tucked beneath her cot. They're not about gods or flames or divine purity. They're about figs, about rain, about hands she's never held. The wax wears thin. One evening, she lingers a bit too long at the edge of the garden. A young man, maybe a courier, maybe a thief, who can say, passes by, glances up, and meets her eyes. Just for a moment, he smiles, not like a worshipper, not like a citizen showing reverence, like a person. To a person, she says nothing, turns away, but the warmth in her cheeks lingers through evening prayers. The next day, she's quieter. She kneels longer at the flame. She adds extra lavender to the cleansing basin and pretends it's just the season scent. No one asks why. No one ever asks. You watch her during the nightly vigil. She's kneeling beside the flame, eyes unfocused, whispering something too softly to catch. Her lips move in rhythm, but you suspect these aren't the official prayers. And then you notice the fire asterisk flickers asterisk. Just a stutter, a moment, the tiniest breath of hesitation. She doesn't move, doesn't even blink. But you feel it, don't you? That slow, curling tension in the back of the neck, the way the hairs lift even though there's no wind. She reaches forward, adds a sliver of wood. The flame steadies, still. Your heartbeat does not, because you know what's coming. You step back, the image of her fading slightly in the haze of smoke. She has no idea how close she is to becoming a headline in history. But you do. You exhale. Slowly, the line between sacred and scandal is about the width of a candle flame. You're moving through the temple with different ears now, listening not for prayers or recitations, but for whispers. Not just the kind that drift through corridors like breezes, but the ones passed between glances, wrapped in silence and smothered before they can take shape. Because the temple may be a house of the goddess, but it's still filled with human hearts. And human hearts, even sacred ones, are very good at secrets. She's 17 now, maybe 18. No longer the girl who stared at her sandals, but not yet the calm marble-eyed priestess people think of when they picture ancient Rome. She's asterisk becoming asterisk. And becoming anything in a place built on rules is risky business. Lately, she's been spending time with one of the older novices, a clever, weary girl with a laugh like spilled wine. Let's call her Calpurnia, though that probably wasn't her name. Calpurnia knows things. She knows where the bread is freshest, which senators are secretly broke, and what the stars mean when they flicker a certain way. She reads the world like a gossip tablet, and she talks to our priestess when no one else is listening. They sit together in the temple's herb garden, between the lavender and rosemary, supposedly discussing the purity of offerings. In reality, they're talking about asterisk Rome asterisk. Did you hear what happened in the forum yesterday? That man, what's his name? Rufus something? He kissed asterisk widow asterisk in public. They say the emperor's nephew gambled away his sister's dowry. And maybe, just once, do you ever think about asterisk leaving asterisk? The question hovers in the air like ash, never quite settling. It's a fantasy, obviously. Vestals do not leave. Not unless their 30 years are up, and even then, the world they return to is one that kept moving without them. A world they're expected to observe, not rejoin. Mainstream historical fact. After their service ended, Vestals could marry, in theory, but many never did. Some because they were too old, some because they no longer knew how, and some some because nobody wanted to marry a woman who'd once been divine property. It made for awkward dinner conversations. Back in the garden, she doesn't answer. Not directly, but she starts asking her own questions. What happens if a Vestal dreams? Not daydreams asterisk real asterisk dreams. Ones with laughter and storms and hands not bound in prayer. And what if just maybe those dreams didn't come from Vesta? Calpurnia just shrugs. Dreams don't care whose temple you live in. Fringe tidbit. There were rumors, wild ones, that some Vestals had asterisk oracular asterisk powers. That they could see the future in the smoke of the sacred flame, or hear the voices of gods whispering in their sleep. One legend tells of a Vestal who predicted a plague, and was buried alive anyway, just in case. Rome, as always, was not great at gratitude. But let's return to our priestess. She's careful. She does everything right. Prays at the right times, tends the flame, keeps her robes crisp, and her posture holy. But inside she is asterisk burning asterisk. Not with desire, though maybe that too, but with asterisk curiosity asterisk. With the unbearable tension of someone who sees the walls round her and has started tracing escape routes with her eyes. She never speaks to the young man again, the one from the fig tree. But she remembers his face, remembers what it felt like to be looked at like a person, not a statue. And perhaps, when she writes in a wax tablet now, the verses have changed. The goddess watches, but she does not see the crack in the candle's breath in the tree. She scrapes it smooth before bed, always. But wax remembers. Historians still argue whether this inner turmoil was common, whether Vestals ever truly asterisk believed asterisk in the system, or whether they simply endured it. Some inscriptions suggest devotion, others quiet rebellion. The truth is probably both, or neither, or changing constantly, like the flame they served. Then comes the day the laughter stops. Calpurnia is gone, not vanished, just reassigned. They say, a temple transfer, a request from the high priest. You're not told why. No one is, but everyone asterisk feels asterisk the change. The hallways echo more, the shadows are sharper, the food tastes like silence, and the whispers begin again. Not about fig trees or street gossip, about asterisk her. Asterisk. Did you see how long she stayed near the flame last night? Wasn't she on duty when the storm came? I heard the fire flickered, just for a second. She starts waking before dawn, checking the flame before anyone else does. She rearranges the kindling twice. She prays harder, louder, but the prayers taste different now. Like fear, not faith. and she starts to realize, perhaps too late, that it doesn't matter how careful she is anymore. The whispers have already begun to shape her fate. You step back from the corridor, letting the shadows close behind you. The temple is still sacred, but now it hums with tension. The kind that says, asterisk, something is coming, asterisk, and it won't smell like incense. You're there on the morning the flame flickers. It's early, still dark. The city outside hasn't even yawned yet, but the temple is already stirring. Cold air wraps round the marble like a second robe, and even the fire burns low this morning, as if reluctant to rise. You're watching her. You've been watching her for a while now, haven't you? She's tired, pale, eyes lined like cracks in a fresco. Something has shifted in her, not just fear, but a kind of brittle alertness, like glass about to shatter but still pretending to be a mirror. She kneels beside the flame, alone. The others are delayed, or perhaps no one wanted to be on shift with her today. It's hard to tell whether these assignments are coincidence or quiet punishment. She feeds the flame. She always does. The wood is dry, stacked precisely. She speaks the prayer, mouth barely moving. The fire answers with a lazy rise, then nothing. Then, it asterisk shudders asterisk. It doesn't go out. Not completely, but it hesitates, like a breath sucked in and never exhaled. The glow dims just enough for the shadows to stretch longer than they should. Just enough for the doubt to take root. She freezes, doesn't blink, doesn't breathe. You feel it too, don't you? That sudden, eerie silence, the kind that comes before something breaks. She adds more wood, more oil, more whispered hope. The flame returns, but not in time, because someone saw it. A junior acolyte, just passing by. A boy, maybe 10, there to deliver fresh herbs for purification. He stumbles, stares, then backs away too quickly. You know that look. He's seen something he doesn't understand, but knows it will matter. And then, the temple changes. Mainstream historical fact. The extinguishing of the sacred flame was considered a national emergency. It was interpreted as a sign of divine displeasure either at the Vestals, or worse, at Rome itself. The last time it went out, they say, a plague followed. Another time, a military disaster. Coincidence? Rome didn't think so. She reports it herself, later that morning. Brave, or maybe just pragmatic. If you confess before the rumors reach the high priest, perhaps they show mercy. Perhaps, but this is Rome, and Rome does not do subtlety well. Within hours, it's not just temple staff whispering. It's the forum. It's the marketplace. A senator pauses mid-bribe to mutter something about humans. A matron skips her usual insult to the fish vendor to cross herself with olive oil. Fringe tidbit. Superstition in ancient Rome was so baked into public life that even politicians had personal augurs bird readers on payroll. No major law passed without a glance at the sky. If the stars blinked the wrong way, court cases were postponed. If a flame flickered, it wasn't a draft, it was asterisk doom, asterisk. So you can imagine what a half-second lapse in a divine fire does to the collective imagination. The high priest calls for an inquiry. Not a trial, not yet, but close. The flame, he says, cannot falter unless asterisk something asterisk is wrong within the temple. Something or someone has made the goddess look away. The suspicion points inward. Always inward. Historians still argue whether the punishments were based on actual failings or were just political theater. After all, punishing a Vestal sends a message. The gods are listening, and we are cleaning house. She summoned. She walks through the temple with the composure of a statue, but inside, her thoughts race. Did she falter? Did she asterisk really asterisk let the flame weaken? Or did her fear shape the fire itself? Can flames sense doubt? She sits before the Pontifex Maximus. His robes are impossibly white. His expression is not. He asks simple questions. Were you distracted? Did anyone else tend the fire recently? Do you understand the consequences? She answers carefully. She says yes, She says no. She says she understands. But understanding doesn't help. Because then, they mention Calpurnia. Yes, her name returns like a drop scroll rolling back into view. Did you speak often? Did she ever distract you from your duties? Did you learn things from her? Did you tell her things? The room feels smaller. The Ethica, our priestess, says nothing for a breath too long. They note the pause, and now. You see how the narrative builds not because she is guilty, but because the story must be told. The people need a cause. Rome needs a villain, and she, in her silence, becomes the perfect one. A Vestal, they whisper, who lingered near the edge of duty. A Vestal who asked too many questions. A Vestal who let the fire tremble. You watch her return to her chamber that night. She kneels, she prays harder than she ever has. But the air doesn't answer. Only the floor does, with the faint vibration of footsteps. The kind that mean decisions are being made upstairs. The kind that say, you are no longer just a priestess. You are problem. You're standing in the back of the forum now, tucked beneath the colonnades where shade collects like secrets. The crowd has started to gather, slowly at first like storm clouds that haven't quite decided whether to ruin your afternoon, but growing. People lean on crutches, perch on steps, bring dates in wax paper and children on their shoulders. They're not here for a race, not for a speech. They're here for a scandal. You glance at the temple in the distance, still serene, still impossibly white. But the whispers that started in the garden, that slithered through dormitories and across holy thresholds, have now spilled into every tavern and tailor's shop in Rome. Someone says the fire flickered. Someone else says it went out completely. Someone else says it's because one of the Vestals was seen kissing a soldier. And because this is Rome, someone swears she was possessed by a demon disguised as a goat. You sigh. Rome loves a good collapse. The accused, yes, it's her. And Rome is now preparing to put her on trial, not necessarily because she did anything wrong, but because it needs to believe something went wrong. Otherwise, why would the crops be failing this season? Why would the Tiber be rising too early? Why did a statue fall off its pedestal last week and crack right down the nose? Clearly, the gods are frowning. Mainstream historical fact. The trial of a Vestal Virgin was not like a typical Roman court case. She wasn't allowed to defend herself publicly. She was brought before the Pontifex Maximus and a small panel of priests. The evidence, whispers, omens, circumstantial rituals. It was less jurisprudence, more theater performed for the health of the city's collective soul. Today, you walk with her. Not literally, no one is supposed to walk beside a condemned Vestal, but you stay near. She's draped in her formal robes, eyes dark-rimmed from sleepless nights. Her sandals strike the stones with too much clarity. The sound rings out through the forum like a cracked bell. She doesn't cry. A priest reads from a scroll, lips pursed like he's trying to taste the parchment. The charges are vague. Neglect of sacred duty. Impiety in thought or deed. Suspicion of unchastity. Nothing concrete. Nothing provable. But then, it doesn't have to be, because this is not a trial. It's purification. Fringe tidbit. There were Roman manuals, actual written guides on how to interpret omens. If a cow mooed 3 times at dusk, it might signal war. If a Vestal tripped in the temple, it might mean an impending plague. These were treated with the same seriousness as laws. Sometimes more. The priest gestures toward the flame now burning, defiantly. He says the goddess was displeased, that someone broke faith, and that until this wrong is corrected, Rome itself will remain under divine shadow. You look round. The crowd wants a resolution, not truth, just a sense that order will be restored. Rome is obsessed with control, not the personal kind, but the cosmic kind. If something is broken in the heavens, it must be mirrored on earth. Someone must pay, and a girl who once looked too long out a window is easier to punish than a god. Historians still argue whether these public rituals were genuinely believed or just tools of power. But watching now, you know belief isn't always about truth. It's about repetition. Say it often enough, let the rumors ferment long enough, and people stop asking asterisk if asterisk. It's true, they just ask asterisk how asterisk to punish it. She's led away not in chains, but in silence. No blood must be spilled, remember. That would violate sacred law. So her sentence is whispered, not shouted, not carved into stone. Burial. Alive, not as cruelty, not as execution. As asterisk ritual asterisk. A necessary sorrow. A correction. They say it with such calm. You wonder if anyone even hears what they're saying. You follow as she's taken not to prison, but to a chamber beneath the city. A place called the asterisk campus Cellatus asterisk the field of the wicked. It sounds dramatic, because it is. A patch of earth near the city walls where condemned Vestals were sealed in underground rooms. Not tombs, not technically. Rome says it's not asterisk killing asterisk her. It's just asterisk putting her somewhere she can't sin anymore. Asterisk. That's different, right? She is allowed one lamp, a loaf of bread, a jug of water, some say a little milk, maybe a blanket, a bed carved into the wall. It is mercy, they say. Rome asterisk must asterisk show mercy. You watch her descend the steps. She does not resist. That's important. A Vestal must go willingly, or the ritual is invalid. The burden is always on the woman, even now. There's a hush in the crowd. Not grief, not empathy, just that strange Roman silence that falls when people agree not to think too hard about what they're witnessing. She disappears, and the city exhales. You walk away, heart a little heavier, because this wasn't just a trial. It was a asterisk release valve asterisk. A scapegoat for every unspoken fear an unswept omen Rome has been hoarding for years. You know this now. She wasn't buried for what she did. She was buried for what they asterisk needed asterisk her to be. You hear the buzz of the crowd before you see the room. It's not the thunderous roar of the Colosseum, not the battle cries of warriors or the chants of a festival. This is something quieter, sharper like bees swarming round a cracked hive. Not angry yet, just asterisk expectant asterisk. Hungry for a spectacle. You're in the asterisk atrium libertatis asterisk. Now the whole of liberty. Ironic, really, considering what's about to unfold. It's usually where censuses are held, where records are kept. But today, it has been borrowed for something far more dramatic. Rome has decided to host asterisk trial asterisk. And not just any trial that no one can quite explain. Because technically, this isn't a court of law. The Vestals, you'll recall, answer not to the Senate, not to the consuls, but to the gods and, by proxy, the asterisk Pontifex Maximus asterisk. Which means today's proceedings are less about evidence and more about mood. Less about proof and more about theater. You settle into a corner, and you see her. She's dressed in the same ceremonial robes, white, flowing, unblemished, but there's something brittle about them today. They look less like a badge of holiness and more like a shroud. She stands quietly beside the marble platform, not shackled, not restrained, because Rome insists it is asterisk not asterisk condemning her, merely evaluating. There are 6 priests present, 6 white-robed men with scrolls, rings, and permanent squints. They speak low. Occasionally one nods, as if that seals a fate. The 7th seat belongs to the Pontifex himself, who enters last, wearing robes so over-embroidered they might be visible from Saturn. Mainstream historical fact. The Pontifex Maximus held immense religious authority in Rome. By the late Republic, it was often a political post. Julius Caesar himself held the title. So while it was technically about religion, everyone knew, if you held that seat, you also held the city's narrative. They begin with omens. The day the fire flickered, a statue of Juno cracked in the forum. 3 black birds were seen flying backward over the Palatine. A goat gave birth to twins, both with one eye. Coincidence? Not in Rome. Then come the asterisk room as asterisk. She spoke often with a former Vestal Calpurnia. Too often, she was seen lingering in gardens. Once, someone says, she was asterisk smiling asterisk at the flame, as if harboring impure thoughts. Another claims she was overheard reciting poetry, not hymns, but secular verses, with dangerous words like hands and laughter and breath. Still another, bless his creativity, swears she appeared in a asterisk dream asterisk, offering figs with blood on her palms. You almost admire the flair. Fringe tidbit. Romans considered dreams powerful enough that certain temples had asterisk dream interpreters asterisk on retainer. If someone dreamed of a Vestal Virgin acting suspiciously, that could be brought into evidence. Seriously, she's asked no questions. That's what catches you. No one asks for her story. No one inquires about her memory of the night. Whether she stumbled, whether she was ill, whether she felt asterisk anything asterisk. Instead, they speak asterisk about asterisk her. Round her, over her, like a statue being weighed for a location. One priest finally gestures to the fire visible through the open doors behind the dais. It burns now, he says, but the gods asterisk remember. Asterisk historians still argue whether these trials were formal proceedings or ritual performances. There's evidence for both. Some believe the pontifex genuinely believed in his duty. Others say he played the role like an actor on a grand stage, appeasing the people, the Senate, and the heavens in a single performance. But in this room, truth bends easily under the weight of ritual. She stands straight. You wonder what she's thinking. Not about guilt. There's never been guilt in her eyes. Just understanding that this was always part of the deal. That sacred service comes with sacred risk. The pontifex finally raises his hand. The room quiets. The gods, he says, have been displeased. A murmur. He doesn't declare unchaste. That would require proof. He doesn't accuse her of sacrilege. That would require divine consultation. He simply asterisk states asterisk without trial. Without debate, that balance must be restored. The sentence, she will be led to the asterisk field of the wicked asterisk. A chamber will be prepared. She will be placed within it, unharmed and touched. Bread, water, a lamp, a bed, and the earth will be closed above her. Technically, she will not be asterisk killed asterisk. Technically, the city will not be guilty of murder. Technically, everything will be asterisk very legal. Asterisk, you notice the crowd outside as you leave. They're quieter now, not satisfied, exactly, but reassured. The city has done something. The gods, surely, are watching again. She walks out not as a girl, not even as a priestess, but as an asterisk symbol asterisk. Of failure, of order, of Rome's ability to correct imbalance. No chains, just marble silence. You remain behind for a while. The room still smells like wax and sweat and papyrus. A scroll lies on the floor, forgotten. You imagine it reads something like, asterisk case closed, gods appeased, world continues, asterisk. And you can't help but think, this wasn't a verdict. It was an asterisk story asterisk. And every story needs someone to blame. You're walking with her now, not in body, but in the soft, heavy hush of everything unsaid. The city seems to know. Even the sky is quiet. No birds overhead. No children darting between fruit stalls. Just the sound of sandals against stone. One step after another. She's not escorted by guards. No torches. No fanfare. That would imply guilt. And Rome doesn't want guilt. Rome wants asterisk ritual asterisk. So instead, her procession is composed of priests in white. Their heads bowed, their lips tight. A few citizens watch from a distance, eyes blank, faces unreadable. Some pretend not to look. You pass the temple one last time. She doesn't glance at it. That's part of the performance, too. The gods must see she accepts her fate, that she walks willingly toward the earth. To resist, to weep, would be to disrespect Vesta herself. And if there's one thing Rome cannot tolerate, it's disrespect dressed in white robes. You're nearing the campus Celevatus *, that terrible little plot of land pressed just beyond the city's sacred boundary, the field of the wicked. But of course, they don't say that out loud today. No need to sour the ceremony with labels. Mainstream historical fact. Vestals condemned to death weren't technically executed. Roman law forbade it. Instead, a chamber was built underground, stocked with just enough to pretend the death wasn't deliberate. A small bed, a flickering oil lamp, a loaf of bread, a jug of water, and silence. Always silence. They pause just before the final descent. She looks at the stairway leading down. It's narrow, just a few stone steps into a chamber no bigger than a slave's quarters. You notice the air change. Cooler, stiller, like even the wind is holding its breath. She doesn't tremble. There are no ropes, no pushing. Rome, remember, prides itself in its restraint *. The ritual demands that she descend alone. No blood may be shed, no violence witnessed, because this is mercy *. She steps forward, 1 foot, then another, and you follow. Each step echoes. You feel the earth pressing closer, the sky narrowing above her, the shape of the city fading behind. The opening shrinks until it's no wider than a mouth. A final breath. She reaches the bottom, turns. There's the bed, the food, the lamp. It flickers. They seal the chamber, stone by stone. Not quickly, not dramatically, just methodically, as if closing a door on a dusty room no one plans to visit again. Fringe tidbit. Some records claim that condemned Vestals sometimes sang softly as the stones were placed. A final prayer, a lullaby for themselves. No one remembers the words. Outside, the priests mutter final blessings. The pontifex nods. Someone scratches a note onto a tablet. The goddess, they assume, is satisfied. Historians still argue whether the burial was symbolic or real, whether the chamber was truly sealed forever, or whether once the ceremony was done a back wall was opened, and the girl allowed to vanish into exile. Some believe this was Rome's way of cleansing guilt without committing murder. Others believe the dirt never moved again. You linger. Long after the procession has left, the street returns to life slowly. A vendor shouts about figs, a dog barks, a child complains about sandals. But in your mind, you're still underground, still hearing the final click of stone, still picturing her alone, sitting, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on that tiny flame that will burn out long before she does. No one speaks of her again. Not aloud. Even the other Vestals are told to erase her name from the walls. Her duties are reassigned. Her sandals are quietly passed to a new novice. Life continues, as it always does in cities built on myths. Because Rome isn't cruel, remember, just traditional. You return to the temple, though it feels different now. Not in appearance. The marble is still polished. The incense still coils lazily through the halls. The sacred flame still flickers, loyal as ever. But the air, it's changed. Heavier, tighter, the kind of stillness that settles after someone says something unforgivable, and no one dares to mention it again. The other Vestals continue with their duties. On the surface, nothing has changed. They chant, sweep, tend the fire. But when they pass one another in the corridor, their eyes flicker just briefly like a shared memory they're all pretending not to have. You watch as one of them, barely 13, kneels in front of the flame. Her hands are steady, her face calm. But her foot taps, once, twice, like a pulse she doesn't even know she's keeping track of. And you realize, they're not mourning. They're remembering but they're doing it in silence, because mourning her would mean acknowledging what happened. And in this place, silence is safer than sorrow. You follow the youngest one as she carries a tray of grain offerings. She pauses by a column, perhaps the same one the girl we've been following leaned against all those months ago. Her fingers linger on the cool stone. Just for a second, she doesn't speak, because she knows what happens when words are overheard. Mainstream historical fact. After a Vestal was executed or ritually released, as the euphemism went, her name was often omitted from official records. She wasn't honored, but she wasn't condemned either. She was unwritten, removed from memory, as if she'd been a dream the city woke from. Too strange to retell. Even the rituals shift slightly. The morning prayers are spoken a bit faster now. The grain is measured twice. A senior priestess corrects a younger one for holding her torch at the wrong angle. Nothing major, just stricter, like a temple pulling its shawl tighter in the wind. Fringe tidbit. Some Roman citizens avoided the temple for weeks after Vestal's condemnation. Not out of disrespect but fear. Bad energy, they called it, as if holiness could be contaminated. Some said that if you even glanced at the steps of the field of the wicked, your livestock would die. Superstition in Rome was practically a public service announcement. You drift through the dormitory, where 6 beds now lie instead of 7. The empty one has been stripped clean, the wax tablet removed. But the corner where she kept her sandals still shows faint scuff marks in the stone. Marks no one bothered to smooth over. She is gone, not just in body, but in presence. And yet, she's everywhere. In the way one girl stirs her oil lamp more slowly at night. In the way the oldest Vestal double-checks the grain bowl before morning offerings. In the way no one stands near the fig tree anymore. They've all seen what happens when the rules aren't just broken but bent. And more importantly, they've seen how quickly the city can change its mind. Historians still argue whether the other Vestals lived in fear or acceptance. Some records describe them as serene, transcendent, pure in their devotion. Others describe sleepless nights, shaking hands, girls who whispered prayers with gritted teeth. The truth, likely both. Or maybe they were just tired. Because now, every task they perform is a performance. Every glance is measured, every step rehearsed. Not for the gods, for the city. Rome isn't watching the flame. It's watching them. And they know, now more than ever, that sacredness is a mask that can be ripped away the moment the city gets nervous. You return to the altar room one evening, just as the sun bleeds into dusk. The golden light filters through the high windows, painting everything in ember. The girl you followed for so long, her absence still feels like a presence. The room almost tilts with it. You wonder, did she know her silence would echo like this? Did she guess that, long after the final stone was sealed above her, the temple would still hold its breath? Probably not. But you know now, and so do the ones who are left behind. You return once more, not to the temple, not to the streets of Rome, but to the chamber beneath the earth. The one no one speaks of. The one they swore wasn't a tomb. It's been days, or perhaps weeks. Time, in a place like this, becomes soft. Like wet plaster, easy to press into, impossible to smooth out again. You're not supposed to be here. No one is, but memory is sneaky like that, it goes where it pleases. And so, here you are, standing again in the small, carved room where one loaf of bread still sits untouched, where the lamp guttered out long ago, where the bed, thin as duty, still bears the faint shape of a body that lay down, not to sleep, but to disappear. Rome will insist this was not an execution. Rome will point to the blanket, the water, the prayer chanted at the final stone. But you know better. You look round. The walls are smooth and decorated. There are no names carved here, no epitaphs, because carving would imply remembrance. And this chamber wasn't built to remember. It was built to erase asterisk. Mainstream historical fact. The asterisk campus Celatus asterisk Field of the Wicked was never marked on official city maps. Its existence was an open secret, like the existence of shame in a proud family. People knew, but no one drew their lines. And this chamber, this isn't even the first. There were others before her. Their stories flicker through Roman records like ghosts. Vestals accused of betrayal, impurity, treason of the body or the spirit. Their names never agreed upon. Their crimes always conveniently vague. She joins them now, but not in stone, not in scroll. In asterisk absence, asterisk fringe tidbit. There's a legend not widely accepted, but often whispered that one Vestal, long ago, survived a burial. That the chamber cracked during an earthquake. That a ship had found her, wild-eyed and barefoot, muttering prayers into the wind. The Senate, horrified, is said to have erased every mention of her. She became a bad luck charm, a living ghost. Some even claim she wandered into the hills and founded a village, where no one ever spoke of Rome. Probably nonsense, but stories have a way of clinging to truth, even when they lie about the details. And now, as you stand in the dark, you feel the edges of her story settle into place. She didn't scream when they sealed the chamber. She didn't pray aloud. She just sat back straight, hands folded, eyes calm. She knew the role, and she played it to the last breath. But here's the secret no one in Rome would dare to speak. That chamber wasn't empty when the final stone was set. It was full of dignity, of rage, of refusal to be erased. Historians still argue over the logistics. Did she last a day? 3. Was the bread eaten? Was the lamp lit until the end? But none of that matters now. What matters is the space itself, what it holds. It holds silence, but not submission. It holds a girl who followed every rule and was still devoured by them. It holds the tension between sacred and sacrificial. And above it, the city marches on. Oblivious, busy, because Rome is very good at continuing. Even when the ground beneath its marble feet hides more than just foundations. You rise from the chamber now figuratively, if not physically, and rejoin the city. The sun is setting. You walk past the temple, the Senate steps, the bakery with the apricots, and everything looks as it always did. That's the trick. The chamber doesn't exist. Because everyone agrees not to see it. But you saw it. And now, so do we. You step into a Rome that has moved on, or so it would have you believe. The city hums with life, with daily squabbles over prices and street musicians trying to outsing the clamor of carts. The forum is bustling. Bread is rising in ovens. Someone is shouting about a new shipment of oysters. And yet, not far beneath your feet lies a sealed chamber no one will speak of. You pass by the temple again. It's quieter now, though no one says why. The sacred flame continues to burn obedient, steady, unbothered by politics or memory. You wonder if it knows, if fire remembers what it consumes, or who, inside, the routines have resumed. Vestals move through their tasks like clock hands, smooth, deliberate, precise. They sweep, chant, measure grain, prepare offerings. Their posture is perfect, their silence more so. But something's missing. No, not someone. Something, attention, an echo, an alertness that wasn't there before, and yet somehow now always is. You catch a moment one of the younger girls fumbles a ceremonial bowl. It wobbles, nearly falls. She catches it just in time. A senior Vestal flinches, but says nothing. No reprimand, just stillness. And the younger girl's cheeks flame with shame. Not from the mistake, but from what that mistake could have been. Mainstream historical fact. After an incident involving the condemnation of a Vestal, the entire college of priestesses often became more rigid. Procedures doubled in intensity, vigil shifts lengthened, public appearances dwindled, not to atone, but to reassure. The gods, after all, had to see the improvement. The temple becomes almost military in its efficiency. No laughter, no poetry, definitely no fig trees. The novices who joined later after the burial sense their knees even if they don't understand it. They tiptoe around it, like the way you learn not to talk about a relative no one mentions, even if their picture still sits on the mantle. Fringe tidbit. Some Romans believed that the spirits of condemned Vestals could cause droughts or failed harvests, not because they were evil, but because their deaths created an imbalance. The goddess Vesta, they feared, might grieve quietly in fire and dust. You trail the pontifex as he visits the temple and you're right. He walks slower now. He pauses longer before the flame. He doesn't say her name, of course not. But when he blesses the altar, his voice stumbles on a word. Just once, almost unnoticeable, almost. And in that moment, every girl in the temple holds her breath. Because they all remember. Even those who pretend not to. Historians still argue whether Rome's greatest strength was its structure or its forgetfulness. Some say the empire thrived because it could move forward, relentlessly, without dwelling. Others say its cracks widened because it refused to look back. That memory, denied long enough, becomes rot. You walk the perimeter of the temple garden one evening. The fig tree is gone, cut down, roots and all. The soil beneath is overturned, rough. Nothing grows there now. It's just empty. A message, not to the public, but to the girls. Asterisk, there are no stories here. There never were. Asterisk. But you know the truth. It lives in the way the youngest Vestals flinch when the wind gusts near the flame. It lives in the way the grain bowls are polished 3 times instead of 2. It lives in the way the sandals of the girl who followed every rule still echo in these marble halls. Rome has forgotten her, but the silence hasn't. You turn one last time before you leave the temple grounds. The sky is gold, the sun setting like spilled wine behind the rooftops. You imagine her walking beside you hood drawn, eyes forward, steps unhesitating. Not a ghost, a memory, still moving. The years slide past like sand over polished stone. Rome changes but slowly, the way an old tree shifts shape across generations. The streets remain noisy, the temples stay busy, new emperors rise, old statues wear no cracks, and yet, the temple of Vesta endures, round and unmoved, holding its breath in the center of it all. But deep inside the house of the Vestals, in the dormitories behind the altar, the atmosphere has hardened. Something invisible presses against the walls. Not weight, exactly, but pressure. Like a room that's been sealed too long. Like no one dares to open a window. Even when the air turns stale. You're sitting quietly in the shadows now, watching as the newest group of novices kneel beside the sacred flame. Their robes are immaculate, their hands carefully trained. They speak their lines precisely, with the studied cadence of girls who know the stakes not from books, but from silence. Because even now, no one speaks of her not the teachers, not the priests, not even the girls who were there, who watched her walk down those stairs, who remember the shape of her bed after it was stripped. She has become a hole in their memory, but she has not gone. You see it in the way one girl refuses to look at the fig orchard when passing the garden gate. You see it in the way the senior Vestals touch the altar stone just a second longer than necessary. You even see it in the candle that flickers, just once, during a storm, and the way every single girl in the chamber flinches. Mainstream historical fact. The remaining Vestals were expected to show no emotional reaction to a sister's condemnation. Rome believed that public sorrow undermined the authority of ritual. And so, The ideal Vestal response was serene acceptance. Anything less was considered suspicious. Which is why, even now, the rituals continue flawlessly. The flame is never left unattended. Offerings are weighed 3 times instead of 2. The dormitories are spotless. The steps swept daily. Even the robes are starched to stiffness. But no one sings anymore. There used to be songs, gentle chants the girls would murmur during quiet evenings, all as they prepared grain for feast days. Simple melodies passed down like lullabies. They've stopped. You pass through the corridor where the wax tablets are kept. The shelves are full, yet carefully ordered. A scribe copies each record in a tight, emotionless script. Her name is not there. Her training, her duties, her offerings scrubbed. But one wax tablet remains half erased. Faint, scratched lines under fresh inscriptions. Hard to see unless you tilt it toward the light. A fragment of a verse. Asterisk, a flame may flicker, but the stone remembers, asterisk. The rest is smoothed over. Fringe tidbit. Some scholars believe the Vestals kept secret diaries, not official logs, but personal ones, scratched into wax and hidden among the core records. Very few have survived, but one fragment found centuries later simply reads, asterisk, she was afraid, and we said nothing, asterisk. And so the silence remains. You walk through the temple kitchen, where a new novice is stirring lentil stew. She's humming softly, barely audible. But when another girl enters, she stops immediately and pretends she wasn't. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she remembers that sound carries. Historians still argue whether the aftermath of a Vestal's execution changed the institution for better or worse. Some say it reasserted order. Others say it injected fear into faith. Perhaps both are true, perhaps neither. Perhaps the gods looked down and said nothing, and the people filled the silence with rules. You follow the same path she once walked past the herb garden, the colonnade, the edge of the forum. You pass tourists, politicians, lovers sneaking kisses behind pillars. Life goes on. It asterisk has too, asterisk. But beneath the surface, beneath the sandals and togas and blessings, there's a weight. Not grief, not guilt, something heavier, a knowing, a shared understanding, never voiced but always carried. That sacred doesn't mean safe. That duty can become a grave. That silence can be just as loud as screaming if you let it sit long enough. You turn a final corner and see the fire again, still burning, as it always has. The girls move around it in choreographed rhythm. Their faces calm, but in the way they kneel, the way they breathe, the way one of them glances toward the sealed garden wall when she thinks no one is looking, you see it. They asterisk remember asterisk. Even if they're not allowed to, you walk once more through the temple's colonnade in the hush before dawn. The sky hasn't yet turned gold, and the marble glows faintly in the twilight like bone on the skin. The city beyond is beginning to stir, faint cartwheels, the crow of a stubborn rooster somewhere in the suburb, but here, everything is still. The flame is still alive. The rituals are still followed. The Vestals still rise at first light and sleep only when the prayers are done. But something has shifted over the years, and you feel it now more than ever. The temple hasn't changed, but its silence has deepened. You pass by a statue of Vesta herself. She holds no weapons, no thunderbolts, no scales of judgment. Just calm, steadiness, a flame in hand, an expression unreadable. And somehow, that makes her more fearsome than any war god. Because you realize, this wasn't a god who roared when angry. This was a god who let silence do the punishing. The girl, yes, asterisk her asterisk, has been gone a long time now. You could count the years, if you wanted to, but it wouldn't help. Time here doesn't move in years. It moves in rites, in footsteps, in whether the fire trembled last night or not. No one speaks of her, no one says her name. But today, as you enter the courtyard garden, you pause. The fig tree is returning, not the old one. That was destroyed. Roots ripped out like an exorcism. but here now just a slim green stalk, rising stubbornly from the crack between two stones. Someone must have dropped a seed, or the wind carried it, or perhaps the earth simply remembered asterisk. You stand with the girls during morning chants. Their voices rise in slow harmony, the same words sung by generations before them. Their hands are folded, eyes cast down, devotion etched into posture. But in one girl, perhaps 15, with a calm gaze and ash-colored hair, you notice something unusual. Her fingers twitch, only slightly, barely perceptible, but enough. She's thinking something she isn't saying, and that's where it starts, isn't it? Again, because silence, like fire, asterisk flickers asterisk. Mainstream historical fact. The office of the Vestal Virgins would eventually vanish as Christianity spread across Rome. The temples closed, the rituals ended. But for centuries, the memory of them lingered. Women who held power without armies, who lived apart from men, who could bless or doom you with a glance. Even after their disappearance, the idea of them endured, and perhaps still does. Fringe tidbit. In medieval Rome, ruins of the temple were said to be haunted. Locals told stories of white-robed women seen walking among the stones, their feet not quite touching the ground. They weren't angry ghosts, just watchful ones. You leave the temple for the last time. The sky is brighter now. The marble steps warm underfoot. The sounds of Rome return: bells, dogs, gossip, commerce. But you walk differently, because you've been underground. You've heard the stone click into place. You've stood in silence long enough to know its shape. Historians will write about the temple, about its flame, about its fall, but they won't all write about asterisk her asterisk, the one girl who was neither martyr nor monster, just a priestess, a girl chosen by fire, consumed by it, and remembered not in name, but in asterisk absence asterisk. And that's why, even now, when you pass a flame that flickers unexpectedly, you pause, not in fear, but in reverence, because somewhere, in the space between memory and forgetting, she still kneels, still watches, still waits, not for rescue, but for asterisk remembrance asterisk. Now, the flame grows smaller, the marble fades from your vision, and the steps beneath your feet soften into sand. The sounds of Rome temple bells, sandals, whispers slip gently out of earshot, replaced by a slow, steady hush, like wind moving through the ruins long after the crowds have gone. Breathe in slowly. There's no more judgment here, no more rules to keep or rituals to perfect. Just quiet, the kind that wraps round your shoulders like a warm shawl, the kind that says, you've done enough for today. The fig tree grows again, in your mind now, its roots curling round old stone. Not defiant, not bitter, just steady. It doesn't need to be seen to survive. It's simply asterisk is asterisk. You let go of the stone corridor. You release the weight of unspoken names. You feel your breath lengthen outward, softer, easier now. And beneath it all, that sacred flame so guarded, so feared, has become something smaller, something manageable, something you could carry in your chest if you needed to. A warmth, a memory. You lie back now, wherever you are. Let the weight shift out of your limbs. Let your breath be slow and shallow, like ancient air trapped under stone. You are safe here. You are heard even in silence. And whether you remember her name or not, you carry her story now. Close your eyes. Let the past be soft. Let the silence be kind. Let sleep find you like a flame that never had to burn to be seen.